Alright, what's up everybody? It's Bones88 back here with my good friend DustyEMU. Um, in this video we're just going to talk about what we thought about the buff event, what team compositions we were thinking that he's going to work good with. I'm only thinking one, really, all demons, but and also just our overall thoughts about it all, and maybe how he'll change the game up and all that. So Dusty, what do you think about the event?
I think there's a lot to say. I think we should probably try to break it down one thing at a time. So I guess we'll start with like difficulty. How did you feel about the difficulty relative to other of the legendary events?
I thought that definitely the hardest event in Dragon Champions at this moment, but it's in my top 3 for hardest events in any hero collector I've ever played. And that goes with Strike Force, with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. It was hard. It was not what I expected. And it's the first time I've ever wailed on anything. I spent like $100, $150 to what I thought would be enough, and it wasn't. Like, I struggled to barely get through. And I did it with Gear 10. Everybody was Gear 10, and most everyone was using
Except for Nara.
Yes, except for Renara, sorry. She was Gear 11, which she was squishy even then, so you gotta have her at Gear 11. But I'm gonna do a little video on what I did, and of course I didn't I was so tired of the event. It took me 7 days to the last minute, and I was so tired of recording it and streaming it that I just kept playing on my phone, and I eventually beat it, but I didn't have it recorded. I took some snapshots, but I'm gonna do a video, I think, of.
Right. I think the thing I struggle with when it comes to the difficulty of it is I had everybody except for 2 characters at the max.
Yep.
With high level runes, high level gear. I mean, there was only Revol was Gear 10 and Salvador was Gear 10, and it still was so hard. And I think I understand that they wanted you to work for a very strong character, but firstly, they chose Pride, which is easily the hardest faction to gear. Okay?
Definitely.
And then they added the fact that it was characters whose kits entirely negate Pride. Okay, so there was no way for you to dispel the taunt because Pride doesn't have a dispel. There's no way for you to undo, because like Puncherface is constantly giving you that taunt, and it's frustrating because there's not a whole lot you can do.
I have a question on that. Whenever they would after they did their the very first wave where they all did their AoEs, I would put invisibility on Salvador, but sometimes Hera wouldn't go underneath invisibility. Why was that?
That's because she is not granted invisibility with that particular ability. She's granted invisibility with another one of her abilities, which is the one that I think it's a passive that says if she didn't take damage, she gains invisibility and a certain amount of her turn meter back, right?
Okay.
So if she didn't take damage, she'd go invisible. The problem is you're going against all AoEs.
Yeah.
So unless you're able to dodge or to get against somebody who doesn't have an AoE, you're going to get, attacked, and she's not going to go under invisibility, which means you need to revive.
Yeah.
And I just think that they made it so difficult to the point where it was no longer fun.
Yep.
I didn't enjoy doing the battle. It was just, okay, well, I just have to survive for long enough. When I finally won, it wasn't, yeah, that was fun, I want to go do that again. It was, I never want to do this again. And I hated every moment of what I was doing.
Yeah.
Merely because it just was not fun. It was just tons and tons of health pool.
Yeah. And it took the joy out of you have the best character in the game, and it took the joy out of obtaining them because it was such a grind. And like you said, it was not fun. And here's my thing: is the third phase, the buff phase, should have almost been its own level.
Right. It could have been its own event because it was that hard.
Just
like
that
there was
hard.
one time, right? There was one time I went into that and I was able to kill Venomate, and then I killed Kyra, and I was like, yeah, I got it. I had all 5, and Kiri and Buff soloed my entire team. Just those 2, and I said, this is stupid. Yeah. And that was when I had gear. That was when I had Gear 9 Revolt, and I was like, no, that's dumb. Yeah. So I invested more gear than I wanted to into Revolt, and to me, it just felt very much like they were. And this is the next place I want to go with this, rather than just complain about the event.
Yeah.
First of all, the difficulty was too high for such a high-priced faction, right?
Yeah.
And then the second is, because of the difficulty, how is that going to affect the game? And I think it's going to affect it in a very negative way. And the reason I think that is they're over-rewarding. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but I think they're over-rewarding spenders for spending,
yeah, and
under-rewarding regular players like you, who are maybe you wailed a little bit, but it's not regular for you. Maybe you spend $5 a month. Maybe you don't spend it all.
Yeah. It was a big deal for me to do what I did for Buff.
Right. And I just think they are not allowing you as a low income player, a low output player as far as money.
Right.
You're widening the gap between people who pay and people who don't. And what that does is it makes people who don't pay feel like, why do I even want to stay if I'm not going to pay? And I think that when you're looking to build a game and retain players, you want to be constantly letting free-to-play players know that they're not, out on their own, that they are cared about, because you need, and I've mentioned this lots of times before, Supercell does a fantastic job of letting players who don't pay know that, hey, you're fine not paying, but if you want to pay, you pay a tiny amount and you get something for it.
Right.
Like, you shouldn't have to have had, especially since I saw your Pride, there's no way you should have had to pay $150 to get him and still struggle, right?
Right. And you know how mad I was about to be. I didn't think I was going to get him. I was very discouraged. Like, you should watch my streams. Like, it was misery. I didn't talk much, and after a while I was like, I just got to go. And I turned the stream off. I was so mad, because what if I wouldn't have got him? And it could have been a very likely that I didn't. Like, I scraped by and barely got him.
You got him on day 6, I think.
The
end of day 6.
You know how irate I'd be if I didn't, and I spent $150. And where you're going with that is, it sounds like another game we know, like Galaxy of Heroes. It kind of seems like they're going down that route, because also
and that's that. Now they did it to a whole different degree, because they said you have to have particular characters. So in this one, it would have been like them saying, okay, well, anybody can get buffs so long as you have bought Boreas, right?
Right.
Because he's that kind of paywall character. Yeah. And even though he's available, most people don't want to farm him. But anybody who had him and Kagi geared made that event way easier, because you could roll, through those characters with a lot more damage. There was a lot more ease.
AoEs from Kagi and stuff. Yep.
Right. They aren't saying you have to get those, but what they did was almost promoted, if you play the game the way we want you to play the game, then you get, the good characters.
Yeah. It's like, now it's a dominant. It's not like a rock, paper, scissors thing anymore. It's just this one team is going to dominate, and whoever doesn't have them can kind of do the rock, paper, scissors thing. But after whatever the next character is going to be that dominates, it's going to turn into they're going to have to do that now, or else Buff will just always dominate. So now they're going to always have to top the last meta, and so it's always just going to be one team now, which is where I'm seeing it go in the future. More, I'm not saying it's as pay to play
it's not
Galaxy of Heroes, but it's going to be kind of like that in the arena. And I don't play this game for the arena, but another thing is if you're going to put this, if you're going to do that where it's boring and it's just one character in the arena, so hopefully they are going to bring out a lot more stuff to keep us happy, because I'm not like where you are in the game, but I'm pretty much in game too. You know what I'm saying? I got to farm some goblins, and I think I have like everyone to 7-star.
And I think they have to do something about how strong Buff is relative to the other. Because what happened was, and I don't know if you remember it, but I was able to kind of keep up with the meta for a while. First, it was pretty much spenders just got out front. You could win with pride. You could win with.
There wasn't any like official people. You just wanted to get like a couple tanks and like healers or something is what I remember in meta. Like you just, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but when I first started out, there was no like official team.
Right.
Like
there wasn't, but if you were a spender, you could choose whichever faction you wanted, and you could pretty much win and bring your way up. Right. Goblins weren't really effective until they finally released General Murdoch and added Goram and then eventually Dr. Frank. So they were kind of meh. And then there was a couple of different characters that they added that really broke things. But what really started happening was once most people got Soleus, it was Soleus and humans, and that was the meta for a really long time. Yep. And goblins got to the point where they were able to beat humans, but only with good mods, and it was still a really ick battle, which could go badly on you. Yep. Then they kept introducing more and more, and they got to the elf meta. And once the elf meta came, it was just this, okay, well, now they've got to really up the ante because nothing could beat a full elf team. And I couldn't stand that because I was like, I worked so hard to get this slinger team, you know, with Mordoom, and I did what I needed to do to have a solid, and Selene, even if you use Selene behind Slinger, it's still annoying.
Yeah.
Like, it's still garbage against everything except for Buff. And now they've added Buff, and it's like, ugh, now we gotta do this again. No, and it was an immediate, like, when I first got him, I was one of the first to unlock him. When I first got him, at Gear 8, I was able to climb to 16. And that was because there were so many other people without Buff. The next day, I was down to like 30-something, and everybody above me has Buff. Everybody. And I use a really odd team, which makes me a little bit of a target.
What are you using?
Currently, I'm using Buff with Venomate, Kyra, Mordoom, and Slinger. And I can explain why. But on offense, I can pretty much win against almost anybody. The prevailing option right now, at least around where I am, people are still using Selene, and people are still using Shadar. I don't like Shadar with Buff. I don't think he's that good, but to each his own. I think Venomate is a better option, and there's a few reasons why. But
overall, it's just a demon team. You just want to load them up with demons, right?
Well, yeah, demons with particular abilities that enhance Buff's leadership. Because remember, we're trying to make a leadership that works even better. Right. Selene still works because she's annoyingly fast, and she has the ability to regain her near and then get her abilities off to ability block everybody, which makes her annoying.
Right.
The strongest teams, by far the strongest teams, are ones with Gear 11, 7-star, level 80, Kiri.
Yeah, man, she's a beast. I want her
crazy.
Bad. Yeah. I gotta work on some battlegrounds. Is she farmable in the battleground store?
She is not farmable anywhere yet. They need to, again, are you gonna throw the free to play players a bone, or are you gonna bury them deeper? Yeah. And this, I think it's a really crucial time for this game, because if they decide to put Kiri somewhere that is hard to farm, heck, put her on a hard node. I would rather have her there than in Battlegrounds. Put her on a hard node. Put her in Tournament Store. Put her in, if you really want to throw players a bone, put her in Tower, right? Yeah. Or put her in Guild, or put her in Arena. Somewhere where you actually can invest regularly to get a very valuable character ready. Because for me, if I could get Kiri farmed to 7 stars, I'd finish buff and I'd go right after her.
Okay, so all throughout his kit, you see the 666 thing with commas in there. So what the hell does that mean? Like, if you look on the screen,
it's supposed to be decimals, but my guess is they aren't American and they use commas.
Gotcha.
But okay. Yeah, that's a non-American.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, when we look at his kit, really what you're looking at, because most of his passive is pretty self-explanatory. His tactical advantage is it's kind of like Thrawn's special, where he can clear.
That's exactly what I thought. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And then the dice throw is basically just lots of, buffs that's going to your team, lots of debuffs going to the enemy team. And then his basics pretty self-explanatory. Deal damage, also have a chance to decrease turn meter. The one that seems to be most complicated to players is his leadership. We are Legion. And it does a few things, okay? So, firstly, it adds 30 speed. This is why this team, or this leadership ability, is able to beat elves. Because even if you have faster elves, which you should be able to, because they're a naturally faster faction, you're still going to struggle to outrun demons, because they've immediately got the... because, the fastest rune we can get right now for a primary is 28, so it's a full speed primary plus 2, so that's huge. That's huge in getting your team ahead
and then
of other facts. So as you keep accumulating extra demons with more doom, he keeps dodging more and more, which means the smart thing to do is to not go after him, even though that's not the smart thing to do, right? Like, you really want to get rid of buff as soon as possible. So that makes him annoying. Okay, the next part of his leadership ability is the bonus 30% tenacity. That's huge against certain factions that are very heavily debuff based, like a Pride with Snorri team that's trying to land bleed all the time. That's going to stop you from landing that bleed, which is going to slow them down, their damage down tremendously.
Yeah.
The biggest reason that this ability is fairly overpowered, though, is the combination of the plus 30 speed and the last part, that each time a demon attacks, there is a 33% chance to decrease that target's turn meter by 16.66%. When you're going against, say, an elf meta or, say, a human meta, there's no way they can catch up to the constant removing of turn meter.
Right.
Like, if you take buff into tower, he's immediately giving your team so many extra turns. It's not even funny. Like, it's crazy. If you can stop a Tromgar from taunting or dispel his taunt, he'll never take another turn again. Like, it is absolutely crazy what this team can do.
So speaking of all that, like, what do you suggest to put? What runes do you suggest for buffs?
Well, I'll let you know what I've done with mine. So you want him to be fast. So you definitely want a speed set on him.
Okay, I got that.
But you also want him to be able to land his debuff, which means he needs potency. So
awesome. That's what I did.
Ideally, you want potency on his northwest, right? So a potency primary there. And then you also want a speed primary on his northeast. And then it doesn't really matter what you have on any of the others.
So what artifacts what artifact do you have on yours? On your buff?
I don't think I have an artifact at all on him. Yeah, I don't.
I know they're all wide-ranging, but I just put the Nobleman's Curse, which is dealing damage to an enemy's health, restores shield, equal to 4.5% of damage dealt. Do you think that does any good for me? Or should I try something else?
That's a good one. It's hard to suggest different artifacts because number one, they're extremely limited.
Yeah.
But number two is everybody has a different set of them. I've considered putting that one on him. I've got two of them, but I also don't want to go upgrade one and then upgrade another, and then when I'm ready to upgrade the one that I want to keep on Wonderlula, I have to destroy the other one, which I've invested in.
Yep.
So I haven't even really touched it yet.
One thing this game has on Strike Force and Galaxy of Heroes is that this game is made up lore. It's all them. Like, they're limited to only Star Wars characters or only Marvel characters. But here, they could come up with a plethora, unlimited amount of characters. And this game, above all, should have so many choices to farm so many different characters, more than the other ones. You know what I'm saying? And there should be more characters in this game available, or at more of a rate. They should be putting out more characters at a more of a rate because this is their IP or their ideas or whatever made from the floor up. Just this, all they have is this game. So there's no reason. Also, you could release 100 player or characters in a year in all kinds of different ways to, and of course you can make more money by not putting that many out. But they should be putting out more characters than Galaxy of Heroes or Strike Force is. And supposedly, rumors are that we're getting a new, well, we don't know what, but we think a new clan or something, or a new faction coming soon with the Grand Arena. But they're going to have to come up with some new stuff to keep people happy, because you saw in our guild how many people have left in the last couple of days. Like 3 or 4 people left. They just said, I'm not having fun. And you said the same thing, and I kind of see where it's coming from. But, you know, I like doing content on it, and I just like the game a lot. And so
I like the game a lot. That's why I haven't quit.
Right.
I just and I'm kind of anti lots and lots and lots of characters, unless those characters are all viable and it gives you a massive amount of freedom in how you play the game.
Right.
The problem with lots and lots and lots of characters, though, is it's hard to create kits that are similar in their powerfulness.
Yeah.
Which is why you have to be careful when you do release characters not to overpower something and make it too easily available. Because, I mean, think about it. What if they released a character and it was immediately farmable from, like, say, you know, Tower, which means anybody could get it, you know, 7-star as quickly as they're able to get through, you know, like the Tower farm, right?
Right.
So let's just assume that they released a character with a kit that breaks buff, makes it so buff isn't, you know, the best anymore.
Right.
What that does is, first of all, it means I no longer have to work toward a really strong character to be competitive or to win, really.
Yeah.
And kind of pisses the whales off. So there's a fine line between pleasing the people who spend, because they are the ones supporting you monetarily, but also supporting and you know, listening to the people who don't spend.
Yeah.
Because there really should be that, you know, okay, well, I worked really hard to get this. This should be the best in the game, and I shouldn't be able to pay necessarily to win, but I should be able to pay to have a significant advantage.
All right, so what's your final thoughts on Buff?
Some pluses and minuses. As far as the character go, huge plus. He's got a great kit. There are several character combinations that are going to work behind him, which gives you a lot of variance within the meta, as well as in the hopefully really cool upcoming Battlegrounds, which I am looking forward to. I hope it is awesome and lots of fun. He's definitely a character you want to work toward, and I understand Pride is a hard to gear faction, but don't go any less than gear 10. You need to get them characters up, work on them. If you're willing to farm Boreas, that'll probably make it easier, but as both I and you, Bones, have illustrated, you don't need Boreas to win.
You can do it.
It's just going to require higher gear.
I'll show you guys real quick. You can do it. I don't have Boreas. I use Renara gear 11, and the rest of the guys, these other 4 are gear 10. And of course their abilities are maxed and all that, but I'm going to put a video out about how to do it for the most part. And but you don't need Boreas, and put Renara at gear 11, and you know, these guys are gear 10. You can do it. It's hard. I spent 7 days doing it. You guys can do it.
It's definitely the hardest legendary event on the game currently. Couple negatives to him. It really does limit, even going into Battlegrounds, if you don't have buff and your enemy does, you're probably going to lose. Like, there's not really any way for you to circumvent that. Depending on how good he is on defense, I don't know how he is on defense without having used buff, because ever since buff came out, I've had buff. So there's going to be a lot of tinkering. Overall for the game, I think whales are very pleased, which is a good thing. But I think a lot of people are quitting because it is kind of feeling like they are kind of kowtowing to the whales too much. So you'll have to kind of decide how you feel about that. I'm staying on board for now, mainly because I did get buff and I'm working on gearing him. And I'm really hoping the new Battlegrounds is awesome.
And I'm right there with you pretty much on all that. I completely agree. Great character, exciting. Hopefully it doesn't. I hope they don't get worse and worse with this kind of stuff. I completely agree. It's a business and they need to cater to the whales a little bit. But like you said this whole video, like, you gotta they've done a great job so far staying in the middle, and they even make it to where a person who does not whale anything like me, I actually spent money that, you know, is a big deal to me. Maybe not a big deal to someone else. I actually spent money on it, and I've played these games for 5 to 6 years now, and I've never spent a penny on Galaxy of Heroes, on Strike Force, but I like this game so much that I actually spent that much. Now, I almost, if I wouldn't unlocked buff, I might be saying something completely different, but I got lucky. So for now, like you said, I like the game. I'm still there with it. I doubt I'll ever quit it, just because I'm that kind of person. I haven't quit Galaxy of Heroes, so I'm not. I don't know if I'll spend $150 on it ever again, because that almost got me nowhere. But anyways, to sum it all up, I'm right there with you. Hopefully a new faction comes out, and the new Battlegrounds comes out, and it gives us a lot of stuff to do. Hopefully more videos to come with it, and give us more stuff to do. So that's about it.
A lot of possibilities.
That's about it on this video, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in, and catch you later.